Welcome back to the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. We are your hosts, Clint and James, and let's get down to business. Clint, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, bud. I've had a productive ass week. Getting I started that new gig at the beginning of the year, just kind of getting in the flow of all that, but
yeah,
feeling good. The partner just left town today to go for work, so I'm in the zone,
Oh yeah, you can walk around in your underwear all day now. Perfect.
I mean, I do that anyways. Once you're married for a few years, like all bets are off.
There are no rules anymore.
Yeah. Well, dude, you sound a little gruff. What's been going on in your world, bud? You worked an event or something?
Yeah, I worked Winter Jazz Fest. It's a multi-venue, multi-act marathon, Manhattan and Brooklyn. Manhattan was Friday, Brooklyn was yesterday, and yesterday was rough.
It's already changing you. I think that much jazz is turning you into a cool jazz man.
Yeah, I'm a real cool cat now. Yeah.
Just keep it cool, daddy. Real cool
cats. Yeah,
well, that sounds crazy. I'm sure your brain is feels like mashed potatoes in a jigsaw puzzle just from hearing wrong notes that are actually the right notes for 2 days. So.
Honestly, okay, here's the thing with it. Every year there isn't necessarily a ton of acts that I want to see, but every year I see some cool shit. I see some shit that I did not know about and that I'm happy is now on my radar. But yeah, dude, the noodling, I just can't. I appreciate the musicianship, the skill, the talent, the from the musicianship standpoint, it's like peak form stuff. But I just can't. Can't do jam music. Can't do jazz. I need.
It's just like anything else, right? Like as much as I love metal and stuff, I went to a 3-day metal festival, in May last year or something. And then the last band, they're like, all right, we got one more. Who's ready for more? And this is like day 3 at midnight. And I was like, no, I'm good. Thank you. Like I've heard, you know what I'm saying? Like as much as it's as cool as it is, I'm done.
Yeah, you've reached the max cap. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can only imagine with jazz too, with just how, free form a lot of that is, and just how crazy and the crazy noises and the shapes they're throwing at you.
It's funny too, because like it's multi-venue and they kind of place the bands depending on the type of crowd that would be at that venue. And so like some of the venues are more traditional style jazz. Some of the venues are like bigger, not necessarily orchestral, but just larger piece jazz bands, ensembles. And then, we book a bunch of rock venues and we get the rock stars of the jazz world. And it's not really like jazz. Like, dude, Pete Rock was the headliner at the venue I was at last night. Pete Rock, the 90s hip hop beat producing guru.
That's interesting.
But he had a whole band and the band was sick. And they took his beats and they turned them into a live full band. Well, it was beautiful.
When you're on that level, you're at like a Motown or James Brown band, like tightness,
kinda.
right? Like, cause you're just session, like a ton of session players, and they just all day they have their instruments in their hand, right? So yeah, I'm sure they can just do anything at the drop of a dime.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like those shows are because they're a little more composed. Dude, here's the thing. I just can't do the free form.
Yeah.
I can't do the free form. Like solo, but don't solo for multiple minutes, please. I just don't care. Can we move on? Can the next person solo? Can we get past the solo aspect of this? Let's the free form element. And I get like that's jazz. Jazz is supposed to be sans structure or loose structure that is flexible. I get that. But I just prefer music with a little more structure. And it's really funny because I feel like there's a lot of correlations between, one of the funny parts about working events, and I've worked a lot of events, The funny part about working events are the people that come to different types of events. Totally different crowds, hyper specific when you do a hyper specific event like Winter Jazz Fest. It's jazz folks. And a couple years ago, it was the crowd was a little bit older and they were a little more like the traditionalist, snobby jazz attendees. The crowds have gotten younger in the years that we've worked it, which has been cool. And also the bands that are playing it are more modern bands who are taking a modern day interpretation of what jazz is. But I find a lot of correlation between the fans that would typically come to a jazz show and the fans that would come to a metal show, or fans of classical music, the high art snobs. There's a lot of hilarious overlap there that you don't expect from those groups of people if you just had them all in a room. Like, just as people, they're very different people, very little in common, you would think, but they have one thing in common, and that's they're fucking snobs. They're like really snobs about their opinion. And we've talked about this a bunch, but like the subgenres, jazz, same thing. Classical, definitely the same thing. Metal, totally the same thing. And it's hilarious. Like the further you go down any of these niches, like the more targeted the specific type of group of people that listen to it or engage with it, but they all have the same behaviors, like this air of superiority because they know of a band or are fans of a band that if you're not a fan of that band, how could you even be a fan of music?
Right.
I don't know. That's just like, as I'm standing there listening to the music, I'm thinking about other things, and that's just one of the things that I'm thinking about. I just always found that funny.
It's thought-provoking music, so they did their job.
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Well, so my question.
I'm not gonna lie. I really had to think about some of the shit that I saw. I really had to think, what does this mean?
So, there's like that, the ongoing stereotype joke of like the metalhead elitist who like lives in his mom's basement and has a neck beard and just like whatever. What is the jazz like standard? Like if you were just going to say like the standard jazz elitist, what are some of their characteristics?
I'm
just not in that world.
Neither am I. I don't know if I would necessarily be an authority on that.
Like a silly hat.
Definitely silly hats. Silly hats are for sure involved. I saw multiple silly hats, and I always do. It depends, and it also depends on it's really split up by age. So there's like the older folks that are just very straight-laced people who want to hear like their traditional stuff, and they're traditional folks. They go to a more traditional venue, quieter, more sit down. It's not a venue per se. It's like maybe a supper club kind of situation.
Right.
They're buttoned up. They want the show to be done by 9 so they can be home in bed by 10. Right. That's just like, generic boomer enthusiast of jazz. Then there's like the boomer hippie, but the hippie that was like the new radical in the 60s and wasn't a hippie, but they were like on the mod squad you see what I'm saying? Like there's like the I don't know, like I'm buttoned up, but I'm not buttoned up. I'm a new radical, like I'm a sophisticated, edgy counterculturist. You know what I mean? Oftentimes they have a ponytail, just like a hippie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the stereotypical hippie who didn't grow out of that, or I guess the stereotypical jazz hippie, right? They're typically the people who are, they want the musical masturbation. They want the craziest licks. They want the hardest meter overlapping, and they want the most obscure and in your face and avant-garde. But they're also they will complain about another jazz act that's even more avant-garde, but like more modern, like a younger group.
Like, well, he should have come in on the 7 and he came in on the 4.
Yeah, no, exactly, dude.
And that might as well
can't do that.
Pop music. I heard that on the radio. Yeah.
You can't do that. This isn't what this is supposed to be. And then you have like these are like the middle-aged folks, and a lot of these folks are people, And even like the average age and mentality of a jazz musician or any type of like schooled trained musician, like you think about it, their whole life they played that instrument. They didn't go outside. They didn't do things with friends. They played that instrument through middle school and high school. And then they went to Juilliard or Berkeley, where they spent another 4, 5, 6, 7 years just playing that instrument, doing nothing else but playing that instrument. And it's kind of funny to like look around the crowd, because it's like a lot of those people don't become professional musicians. They spend all that time, and there's somebody, because there's always somebody who's better. There's always somebody who put more time in, who started earlier, who's just that much more passionate about it. And it's funny to see a lot of those people. They're very buttoned up folks. They went to buttoned up institutions. They're probably a hired gun now playing weddings and stuff. They're a buttoned up individual. They have to be malleable to be able to get hired and play their instrument for whatever the job is, regardless of how glamorous that job is or not.
Right.
And they also get the very same way. You can't do that. That's not what I learned at Berkeley. At Juilliard, they said that those things weren't allowed.
Which is so crazy, because didn't like that music form like just start at like kind of just underground dance clubs, like, like in the early 1900s, right? Or shoot, I mean, roots in that are way further back, but like
definitely
that's when it was like popularized, right? And then
I think
weren't all those big names, like weren't they all just like doing heroin and like blow and just like being, a lot of them, pretty fucking punk rock about like just rock and roll star shit?
Yeah,
now it's turned into this, straight
buttoned up institution,
high art, and high class.
If you think about it, like every art, this is why artists and actors and creatives have always like historically had a bad rap, because like even if you go back to Greece and Rome, like the actors and musicians, they had esteem when they were on stage, but they weren't taken seriously. You know what I mean? Like they weren't. It's always been like you have to be an artist, a true artist. You have to be a kind of counterculture. And it really isn't, like being an artist as a profession really doesn't become a thing until later in human history, really, for most people to be able to become an artist and support themselves making art, or just playing music or whatever. So I think what most people think about when they think about jazz is they think about 1920s big band swing, and then into the more avant-garde stuff of Miles Davis. I feel like that's people's most general understanding of jazz, and it's accurate to an extent. Of course, it has roots going all the way back to so many different places, but like Chicago, New York, Kansas City, those places, jazz became a thing. It was dance halls, and then it kind of becomes more popularized, the more people start to dig it. And just like with the same thing with metal. It's the same thing with metal or punk or any subgenre of any type of music. Like there's like the initial excitement, and everyone wants to get in on it. And then once enough people get in on it, it becomes kind of washed out and so fragmented from what it used to be, because it has to appease all these different people with all these different, preferences. And I don't know, but you see what I'm saying? Like even classical music, like that wasn't, very few people could pursue being a classical musician during the time when all the classical music was written, right? That was a very select type of people who showed aptitude and at a young age and could apprentice somebody under somebody their whole life.
Funded by somebody very rich or royal,
a king, or you had to come from a family that had money. Yeah, for sure. It wasn't until much later, like really kind of 1900s ish, before anyone could.
It's still kind of the same way today.
It didn't change. It didn't change. That didn't change. But what changed is the ability for people who don't necessarily have millions of dollars of funding or access to the greatest teachers of all.
Right.
Things like the internet and things like, even just like the music industry. That's a relatively new industry. It was a thing that they didn't really get organized until early 1900s. and they're still behind the times, but it's like hasn't even really been around that long. Before that you couldn't really monetize your music that way.
Right.
You made your money just grueling playing shows and just getting like the short end of the living the artist life, the starving artist. That's a stereotype because most artists for like most of human history, art was not a profitable profession. I don't know, but I guess the whole point of what I'm trying to say there is that it's really funny to look at these groups that on the outside don't really have a connection. On the outside, they're clearly into very different things, but they all developed that same elitist mentality about a subgenre of music that used to be for the chaos. Like really, jazz was for it was for the sake of the jam. It was for the sake of improvisation. Like we don't write things down here. We just see what happens. What is the vibe in this room and how do we turn that into music? Metal was the same thing. How do we take the energy in this room and turn it into music? But now like there's commercialized metal and punk of any type of flavor. Totally. Is any of this making sense? Is this like a complete nonsensical rant here?
No.
Like,
it makes a lot of sense. No, I'm just, so, I'm not a jazz guy. So I think that world is it's very interesting, but kind of like you were saying, it's all of these people come from slightly different backgrounds, like obviously as, the more you put it into a genre box, it becomes more similar, but they're not able to kind of let go of that, the purist, right? Like what the purity of the genre should be, but
or what it means to them.
In order for things to keep growing or moving forward, like things have to change. And that's what people don't understand about any kind of music, right? Like that's why, you get those, the old dads that are just stuck like, well, back in my day, like the Guitar Center dads who like just think that like Led Zeppelin is it. And that's all, it's like
music stopped after Led Zeppelin,
which I want people to be like into what they're into and like happy, but you also have to like, you don't have to, I mean, I'm not your fucking dad, but like, like think bigger than what it is. Right. And if that's what you like, then that's what you like, but don't put somebody else down for taking an element of what that is pure to you and trying to do something different with it. Obviously it can be silly and we make fun of it, dude. I make fun of fucking metal bands all the time. I'm like, well, that didn't work.
Of course. Come on.
You tried to put synths and rap over that. That didn't work out very well for you, bud.
Yeah. We can't take these things too seriously. I think honestly, it sounds like your grievance is the same as mine, where it's like, why do we have to take this so seriously? Like, can't this just be fun? Can't this just be the explicit intent of the creation or consumption of music, which is to enjoy myself? Like, why do we have to put all this shit into the analysis of the purity of this thing? And we can examine jazz and metal here for a second in a unique way, in the sense that just from guitar players, even on YouTube, there's tons of videos, jazz player trying to play metal player trying to play jazz, and like them complaining about it and or saying what they like about it. But ultimately they're two clearly different skill sets, but they're very similar. It requires a lot of similar skills and
it very focused kind of like learnings, right? Of like certain things.
Sure.
Like you don't get good at doing that just by learning your regular scales. You have to kind of dive into it to create something, right?
Well,
or just be able to do that
even sweeping, sweeping. Like there are jazz guitar players that they don't call it sweeping. Like they're not thinking that they're doing a sweep, but in the metal world, they're totally doing a sweep. And it's just always funny how jazz guitarists or metal guitarists will just bitch about the other when in reality, they're just doing the same shit. And the funniest part about that is very few on either side, very few jazz players can play metal well, and very few metal guitar players can play jazz well. But it's just, you think it'd be a natural ally. You think it'd be like, I've refined my niche guitar playing skill, and I know what that took. and we don't play the same thing, but I see that you developed that skill. Thumbs up, buddy. But if it's just, fuck you, man. Your genre sucks. My genre's cooler. Blah blah blah.
But see, that's what I don't
really,
get.
really like. Honestly, metal or jazz. If you had a jazz person arrange a metal song, it wouldn't really change that much. If you had a metal person arrange a jazz song, might not change that much. Like there's really that much overlap. But again, on the outside, those jazz people and metal people are kind of like natural enemies. It's just so funny to me.
I think part of that too is maybe what you were talking about, because obviously I'm going to lean on the metal side of things, but it's because jazz has that kind of air of superiority, not just in the sense of like elitism, but in the sense of like high art and high class. And, it kind of comes with just that air of either money or status or whatever.
Snobbery.
Right. And while
it's got a snobby,
and while
connotation to it.
Metal boasts to not be that way. I mean, it is in several aspects, but I think that's what it is. It's high art versus street art. You know what I'm saying? But even if it's like, you can't call a lot of popular metal bands like, street artists. That's why
what I'm saying.
And I bet jazz is the same way, right? Because it's like, let's say like you're super into like metal stuff and you always hear them be like, oh, I like their first album. And I bet jazz people are the same way, where it's like, oh man, they changed their style too much. I really like this first album. They were doing something really cool while still tipping the hat, but then they just got too far away from the jazz.
What I think qualifies this as jazz music. I don't know. And again, like people who listen to classical music, the same thing. I've heard plenty of classical songs rearranged in metal and metal songs rearranged as classical. There's a lot of overlap, like harmonically and for the structure of the thing. There's actually a lot of strange overlap. You think there'd be natural allies, but very few metal people want to listen to classical music, even though they're just playing distorted classical music sometimes. It's just comical to me.
Symphonic death metal?
Yeah, seriously. It's a thing. That's what I'm saying.
That's a thing. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. Like, you would think there'd be some natural appreciation for at least like we don't do the same thing, but I see that you're doing what you're doing and you're doing it well. Thumbs up, buddy. But instead, I just don't understand it. I always find it funny, and I can't take any of it that seriously. The first years that I worked the Jazz Fest, the crowds were the most stern. They were the most rigid, and I want this to be like the traditional jazz experience. They've gotten a lot better. Metal hasn't at all. I feel like metal just stays the same level of stupid, but becomes more complex because of all the new subgenres.
Yeah, I suppose I'd agree with that. It's pretty wild now. Like there's so many different little holes you can go down.
Okay, Clint, I want to hear a couple different holes of the strangest and most obscure, like proper genres though, not like some shit you're making up. Like a band describes themselves as this.
See, that's the whole thing, is I think the bands that are actually good try to stay away from a label, but at the same time, in order to, have you ever had to tell somebody about what you do?
Duh.
And you have to dumb it, right? You have to kind of dumb it down and do a thing where it's like,
you have to make it palatable for any person to understand.
Yeah. So it's like, let's say like somebody asked me what my band sounds like, and then it's like, I can't be like, oh, it's got elements of this and elements of this and this and this. It's like, oh, it's progressive death metal with core parts, whatever, but like, for example, one of my favorites,
even that is pretty fringe,
yeah, totally. And it's like,
metal people will know, but,
and one of my favorite things right now that's like actually like has a lot of really good bands is what they call like trad metal. So like traditional. So it's going back to kind of like old metal, like 70s and 80s kind of metal roots. But dude, trad metal with
they call it trad metal.
It's so sick though. Like,
why can't they just say traditional metal, and why can't they just say metal?
Because it's, well, exactly, right? Because you just want to be like, oh, we're just a metal band. And if you just say, but if you have to tell somebody and they say, what kind of metal are you in, or what kind of band are you? We're a metal band. That goes in 80 fucking different directions, right? Are you a traditional metal band? Are you a mathcore metal band? Are you a symphonic death metal band? Are you a brutal death metal band? Are you a slamming brutal deathcore band? Are you
Traditional metal is just metal.
Yes.
That is the original. It's the traditional metal.
You have to say that now, because if every band, like let's say a Hot Topic band, right, that is just very like structured metalcore, clean singy parts, whatever, they call themselves a metal band. And then a band you've heard of like Meshuggah or Lamb of God calls themselves a metal band. And then the brutal death metal band who only plays basement shows in Seattle, they call themselves a metal band. That's not the same thing. You know, so you have to, but
I agree with you.
Have a callback to what it is. So it's like we're traditional metal.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is I see why all those people might want to do that, because they want to appeal to the most people. And at least getting people to ask, well, what kind of metal keeps them interested for more than 1 second. Right.
Yeah. But then everybody blows it, and they say, well, we're neo-traditional with a little bit. We're not metalcore at all, but we have blackened riffs with blast beats. And like, they just try to go into it. It's like, no, just sum it up in a statement. It's fine.
Yeah.
The person probably doesn't even care that much anyways.
They
like,
definitely don't.
Cool.
They definitely don't. They're for sure not going to listen to your music. Just don't. I guess this is what I'm saying is like, you can't take this shit too seriously, because it's like, traditional metal is just metal. That's metal original recipe. I don't know. I can't get over that. I'm going to lose sleep tonight.
Dude, I'll send you some genre. Stuff, though, and well, it's not really like a genre. It's just, I think it's kind of more of what a journalist probably came up with of some like metal thing. And they're like, yeah, trad metal or traditional metal. But yeah, it's basically just like old school metal with different newer elements. But
dude, we can't come up with any new ideas. Why can't we come up with any new ideas? Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the same because humans run all of those things. Okay. We're just not taking a minute to think up an original idea. The rehashing and rebooting of shit has exponentially risen so much in the past 15 years of our lives, dude. I want new things. I don't want to relive old things again and again and again.
But again, if you're trying to get, your art or whatever out there, you have to compartmentalize it and explain it in ways to people. Like for example, every time that I post something on my band's Instagram or something, if I hashtag different styles of metal, so it's like hashtag death metal, because some people who like death metal might like it. Hashtag progressive metal, because people who like progressive metal might like it. Hashtag metalcore. If you like metalcore, you might like it. But it's like, is it one of those things? Sure. But then people will get mad too, especially like, dude, don't get me wrong. I love the Seattle music scene. We have like the craziest fucking like dark metal around here, but people are very, very gatekeepy about what death metal is, right? But sometimes it's the easiest way to explain to somebody if they're not like super into it. Like, oh, what does your band sound like? I'm not going to be like, oh, we're progressive, whatever. It's like, oh, we're a death metal band. But like, would I call myself a death metal band amongst the people who actually knew what, like, had a thought of what death metal was? Like, no, probably not. It's you have to say things in different crowds, right?
Jesus Christ, what are you, part of a metal secret society? You have a fucking special handshake? What the fuck is going on here?
Hey, again, just like you said, all those people practiced their instrument for years and years. I sat and I toiled alone with no friends and just listened to all these different kinds of metal bands. I'll make you some playlists, bud, that'll blow your fucking mind.
Honestly, dude, you do all the time. You fucking send me the shit all the time. Dude, the gatekeeping never stops, bro. It just never stops.
And dude,
you can never get away from it. You're like, you know what? I'm going to do this obscure thing. I'm never going to have to deal with any of that in this obscure thing that's very obscure and has a bunch of people involved in it with no real reason to be so gatekeepy. But here we are. Here we are again.
Totally. And I don't know. It's one of those things too. I think like, and this is just specifically speaking metal. I can't really comment too much on jazz, right? But it's when you're really into something, you want it to be able to grow and flourish if you're actually into it, right? If you want it to die off and be stagnant, sure, that's your own thing, but don't complain about it when you're not welcoming new people in and creating a community and creating a space where it's like, oh, people are checking this out. Let's not make it miserable for them, or, like, not purposely.
It's not my thing, but it's still cool. It's a cool thing that you created.
Well, yeah, because it's like, think about it. How many times when you were like, whatever, you started going to shows early, let's say you're like 14, 15, and you go to your first like punk show or something. It's terrifying, right? Because it's like all these people, or like your first metal show, right? And you're like, what are all these dudes in camo pants and boots that are all giant with beards and tattoos? Like, holy shit, I'm a 14-year-old kid. But if you get that one dude or like one person where it's like you get shoved and they like pick you back up and they're like, hell yeah, dude, like that's a positive experience, right? You're like, oh, I could be a part of this, right? But if you show up in the wrong shirt to like a certain, like small show, people are going to be like, what is that guy doing here?
Yeah.
Or like hardcore shows or something, they'll like crowd kill people. Like we've definitely seen that before, where it was like, if you had long hair at like some of the shows we used to like go to back in the day, they would target you, right?
Yeah,
like,
you
remember, like we used to start playing some shows like in our old band, and we didn't look like everybody that was like in the pit and stuff, and they all fucking came for us. Remember, like luckily our old drummer was like a bodybuilder.
Yeah,
remember,
really.
He tried to start shit with us.
Yeah, nobody
air hugged him from behind.
Nobody like. Yeah, we were definitely outsiders in that sense. But
we had to prove ourselves though, right? It's like we showed up and it's just like, oh, we're fucking like heavy as shit. And then people are like, oh, they're cool. Leave them alone.
Well, I think the other thing that you and I would do is that regardless of the band, we'd stand and watch the show. I remember having to jump on stage occasionally to fix a microphone because I was watching the show. I was up front. And again, it's like natural allies. I don't necessarily like the metal that you make, but I see that you put some time into fucking practicing and presenting this music here with us tonight to these 5 people in this shitty venue. We don't need to be enemies. Natural allies. We're both here dealing with this shit situation. I think, honestly, I feel like that's how we won, because we won a lot of people. There were plenty of people who didn't like us, but we won a lot of them over just by like, we were there. And whether we were making the same genre of metal that they were making, like we were still there. We were out there and supporting, watching them play. Bringing people to the show and encouraging those people to stay for the rest of the bands.
Well, I think that's something that like that's important to me and what I feel the purity of things are, right? Because it's like, obviously I'm super into the metal world. It is something that is very important to me. I'm involved in like the local community, but again, like I want a community. Like I love having a fucking rough ass week, not having a rough week, but whatever, having a shit week at work, going in, and then Friday night walking in and like seeing a bunch of cool ass people and some cool ass bands. Like that's my community, right? That makes it all better. But that doesn't happen when you're constantly shutting yourself off from people who would want to come in, right? Like
natural allies.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll be super honest. Like, I play in a technical progressive death metal with core elements, right? But like, again, I don't like all the bands we play with, and like, I'm not going to say who, but it's like we play with touring bands, we play with local bands, but like, obviously I'm going to prefer some over others, but it's like, you still treat everybody with respect and you're still kind to people and like you support them, because it's like, yo, like we all work for that 20 or 30 minutes of release or whatever it is, right? Or even if like you're a fan and not in a band, you crave all week that hour of like fun time where you can like get unhinged and like rough around and headbang and whatever. We're all doing it for the same fucking reasons. We're just going about it different ways. The elitism is just
it's
always something that's gotten to me.
It's never made sense. It's honestly just like the really. I find it funny the further you get down the subgenres, the outer fringes, the frayed ends of the rope, how them being elitist about the thing that they think they understand completely and in totality. It's the only thing some people have.
Totally.
Right. You see what I mean? Like, that's why they get elitist about it, because it's like the only area of their life where they consider themselves to be an expert and make it like their personal goddamn mission to, I can't do anything else. I've got a neck beard and live in my mom's basement and I've been growing my hair out. I haven't washed it in weeks. I don't have anything else, but I know metal.
I'm gonna get on Lamb Goat and tell you to kill yourself.
Tell you about it.
Well, dude, I think that's what I like about, like, I don't know, just like being older and whatever. Anyways, like, I'm turning 35 this year, and you are. Yeah. I think you are too, right? Or
very soon. Yes.
Wild, right? I don't feel that way, but like, the older you get, the less you fucking care about other people's opinions who don't matter to you and whatever. And I like having a friend group or people around me that are kind of a mixed bag, because it offers, especially like when getting into music and creativity and stuff, that different perspective on metal or whatever it is could be a game changer and create something really cool. Like, I remember like a bunch of people, even like in my band and stuff, when we were first getting along, like, what do you like to listen to? I was like, oh, I like all this. And also I'm really into like Bjork and like 70s country music and, whatever. And like, Bjork's kind of fucking lame. And I was like, I don't know, dude. And then we'll write parts that I'm just like, I never would have thought of that if I hadn't been into that kind of stuff. Yeah. Right. It kind of like, that can work for any genre, any whatever. You pull in those different influences and look at this one thing, like whatever this metal trophy or whatever is, from a different way, and it just changes the whole perspective of everything. That's what I like about music, and that's what I think is cool when people are able to pull different elements in. Again, it doesn't always work. Like, sometimes that rap part shouldn't have been in there, buddy. Like, I hope you enjoyed it as an artist, but like, it didn't work for me, so I'm not going to listen to it, and I'll joke about it. But like, also, you don't have to rap. You don't have to
really
rap.
Don't. It's okay. It's okay. We don't need it. You're not adding anything to that conversation. Okay?
This is coming from a guy who's like 35 and still screams, but whatever. I enjoy it.
Yeah, but
so most people keep rapping. If you enjoy it, keep rapping.
Most people who are rapping, they don't need to be rapping. I mean, and I'm sure that's another thing. Like, we are obviously metal people, but you and I both listen to plenty of rap and plenty of hip hop, and even R&B. Our van was hilarious. Like, anyone who rode with us did not know what they were like, we're just going to listen to Meshuggah, right? And it's like, buddy, no, we're going to start with Steely Dan and work our way into some strange territory.
Every band I've ever been in is that same way. Like, especially like if I'm driving or something. Like, I remember I was in that band Ancients in Nashville for a little bit, and we would pull up to all these like deathcore shows, right? So everybody's like looking hard, shaved heads and neck tattoos and stuff. We'd pull up blasting Lady Gaga and like just open up the thing and like weed smoke would pour out and we're all just dancing, like, and then they're like, these guys, and then we go up there and just fucking like leave it all on stage and just fucking like rock the place, right? But it's just funny, right? Because like all those dudes who aren't giving any of that other stuff a chance, or admitting that they like it too, is like, or at least respecting it for what it is. Those are always the ones that silo themselves, and then that band is not a band in a few months. You
get tunnel vision.
Yeah,
you get tunnel vision if you don't listen to other shit. If you choose to remain ignorant to all the cool things that are occurring around you, you're just going to be an ignorant idiot. And ultimately, you work yourself into a corner. You everything you create ends up sounding more and more the same, and the thing that you were trying to avoid is what you ultimately become, because you're not letting new information influence your interpretation.
Well, I mean, think about it from like an audio perspective, right? Because obviously you've mixed and mastered like a ton of different shit. But if you're listening to the same thing over and over and over again, it wears out that sensory for your ears, right?
Dude,
if you don't take a break from that when you're mixing, you're going to make some mistakes of like turning something way too high or way too low. Or
that can happen with any type of music. But it
take a break.
it is like it's a scientific thing. Like if your ears can only take so much abuse, you have to give them breaks. The more stress you put on your ears, the more strained your interpretation of the input that you're hearing because they're just tired.
Now fast forward to end of day 3 of you at Winter Jazz Fest, and you're like, mashed potato jigsaw puzzle brain.
Bro, there was moments yesterday where I was talking to people and they sounded like the adults from Charlie Brown. They were like,
but literally, they also had horns in their hands.
Yeah. This morning, I was like messing around with some audio stuff I was just getting a couple things put up together for like a mastering session. And I was like, well, this is so quiet. And I kept turning it up. And ultimately I was like, God damn, my thing's up all the way and I'm not hearing shit. And then I realized I had fucking Noodles McGillicuddy noodling their guitar directly in my ears for the entire night. And then after the Jazz Fest emptied out, immediately after that, 600 people came in for a Dolly Parton DJ dance set. And it was like I stepped into the Nashville hell that I needed to get out of so badly. It followed me here. There was nothing I could do. There were fucking cowboy boots and cowboy hats with LED trims. It was a personal hell. It was a personal hell.
Yeah, that's a little rough. Like,
it was just an assault. Like I got noodled on.
Yeah,
for 2 days straight. And
you got noodles.
I got hammered by a Dolly Parton. And then here's the dumbest. Let me just say this. I went to 2 shows that occurred at venues after our show. Like after all of our bands had got done playing, some venues had other shows because they stay up until 4 a.m. out here. Friday night, I went to a 90s dance party and a band called like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's, a 90s cover band who I saw at a 90s festival that Coolio, Smash Mouth, and Tonic, band Tonic.
And then every band that had one hit.
Yeah, no, really. Yeah. Lisa Loeb was there. But then they didn't play one goddamn 90s song. I was there for like 30 or 45 minutes and they just played early 2000s music.
They can't if it's all at this particular show or the 90s.
It was a 90s night, Friday night, 90s night.
I thought you were talking about
you're playing Coheed and Cambria. What decade have you found yourself in?
I thought you were talking about the 90s fest. And I was like, can you imagine how pissed off you would be if you were like, like a 50-plus-year-old, dude who's been playing the same album in the 90s forever. And then some cover band gets there before you and plays your song. And you're like, fuck you, dude. So I was like, that's probably why they couldn't play those nights. But.
No. That was intentional. That 90s fest was a nostalgist. A nostalgist's oasis. Pauly Shore was the host. Dude, it was like, honestly, it was like somebody took the leftover Nickelodeon slime and just threw it all over this park in where was that? Williamsburg or Greenpoint. It was strange. But this band played that festival. They were the only band playing that night. It's their residency and it's 90s night. And I didn't hear one 90s song. So flash forward to another day of Winter Jazz Fest. And then immediately following that, 500 or 600 people coming to a Dolly Parton DJ dance party. I didn't hear one goddamn Dolly Parton song. I love Dolly Parton. I will happily listen to Dolly Parton any I love her fucking day of the week. She never went away, and she's got the voice of a goddamned angel.
And I love her resurgence of just being like, she's like, hey, we're not all just backwoods hicks. We like to help each other out in our community. Like,
dude, but she's always been like that. That's the thing. That's why I love her, because she is who she is.
The LED cowboy hat trim.
No,
I'm good on that.
No, it was the worst. I felt like every time I went down to Broadway, it was like I was shell shocked. I was having like flashbacks. I kept hearing fucking "Rock Me, Mama, like a wagon wheel." Rock me, Mama.
I didn't realize you were such a country music gatekeeper.
Dude, no. What? What? What?
It's Dolly or nothing, brother.
I love Dolly. I just said I love Dolly. I'm absolutely not gatekeeping that at all.
You said, but I don't like these Dolly fans with the LED lights on them.
No. These people were debatably
I'm
people.
just being a jerk. Sorry.
Okay, you have to understand these people are demons. This was not this was
literal demons.
This was a hellscape. Okay, you have to understand where all the souls who died at some like hoedown or hootenanny, they all came here,
and then they all watched Yellowstone, and then they said, "Yeah, I could pull off that look." And it's like,
yeah, accurate.
So.
Yeah, it's funny too. Like there's a whole other thing in New York. There aren't many cowboys in this city, but there are rednecks right outside the city, just like with every city.
Yeah.
So they have like a rodeo. There's a lot of like equestrian people who are into horses and stuff, but it's not like cowboys. It's like high society riding of horses.
It's dressage, horse.
Yeah, dressage. Yeah. But there's a whole subculture of people in New York who most of them don't come from cowboy life. They come from like a bigger city, but just not a big a city as New York. But they're obsessed with like modern pop country.
There's a bar down the street from my house that is just that, and it's all like transplant Seattle people, and it's I won't even say the name of it, but it's like they're the kind of place that just serves like Bud Light, and they do like line dancing, but it's like always like it's like bro fest, and there's just like fights all the time, and just like just like blackout drunk like sorority girls, and it's just like this ain't cowboy shit.
Like whiskey dicks down on the square. Like whiskey dicks or gentleman jams.
Oh my God. But yeah, it's like that's not cowboy shit.
It's not. It's yuppie bullshit. It's yuppie bullshit. It was a bunch of fucking yuppies. A bunch of those people thought that Shania Twain was Dolly Parton. Like they could have played Lady Gaga. Those people would have been like, I love Dolly Parton. Did you see her with Miley Cyrus in the New Year's special? And it was just sloppy. At that point, it was like the Winter Jazz Fest got over like 11:30. There was like a quick turnaround. I boxed up all the gear, and then this happened. And I ended up hanging out at that venue just to like decompress. I had a beer and was just like chilling, waiting for the go ahead to walk away, and it just became that hour. And again, I've worked a lot of events. And there's times in the night where nothing good is gonna happen past this point.
Oh, I
have missed the peak opportunity for fun and enjoyment here, and I used to be really bad about knowing when to walk away, but now I'm really good at it.
We've done that. We've had a lot of practice.
We've played this fucking game before, so.
Like big shows and stuff like that, I'll just straight up not say bye to some of my friends because it's just like.
Time to go. It is time to leave now.
Beat the traffic.
Yeah.
Beat the traffic. Yeah, dude. Like, yeah, at a certain point in the night, nothing good's gonna happen.
Well, and just how many fucking dumb conversations you and I have had to entertain by some drunk fuck who was left over at the end of the night.
How many times you can
just
be like,
not even making sense. Yeah. Oh, really? Damn. All right. Well, Clint, please tell me something. Do you need me to help you with something? Please just tell me anything right now.
Dude, I'll straight up have to do that still, like at shows and stuff. Like I'll be working. I was working like merch for my friends the other night, and like Punishers, dude. And like I just couldn't, and it was late, and the person was drunk and just like in my ear, just constantly going. And I had to text the group chat, and I was like, somebody please come save me. I was like, and then like luckily, like
I will
cool.
murder
like,
this individual.
A couple of them swing through, and they're like, oh hey, what's up, man? I was like, thank you. I have to go outside for a second.
Yeah.
Like, gotta go.
Yeah, no, dude. It was like hardcore, those vibes. And it shifted quickly. In New York, because bars stay open, people pace themselves a little differently. I don't know what it's like out in Seattle, but typically like you're greenlit from 7 to 10.
Like that when I don't have to be,
Well, but any nightlife place, doesn't matter the pedigree of that place. There's a time in the night where nothing good is going to happen beyond that time.
It's usually midnight or after. But
this is what I was saying. In different places, I feel like it's kind of a little bit different based on the general lifestyle of the people. New York
doesn't sleep. I get that.
In New York, you're greenlit from like 7 to 11. Even if people are drinking, they're still mostly sober by that point. You can have a coherent conversation with them. Nobody's acting fucky, right? 11 to 1, it gets a little, the threat level increases to yellow, right? Everyone's starting to get a little sloppier. Some people are going to call it quits soon, but then there's a bunch of other people there who are convinced they're going to make it till 4, but they're not.
And then they start talking about their crazy ideas, and they mention it first. They're like, I'm not misogynist, but, and you're like,
no, you're definitely going to say something misogynist. Yeah. And I don't want to hear it. I don't care. Sir, where are your shoes? Like, seriously, that's the point that it gets to. And then from like 1 to 3, no. The only time I want to be doing anything between 1 and 3 is watching some dumb shit on YouTube on my couch. And it's okay if I'm drunk there because I will just pass out. I might throw up, but I'm in my house. I'm not making a problem for anyone other than myself.
Totally. And that's what it's about. It's about not causing problems for people.
Really? No, dude, seriously. This is the big takeaway here is like, I want everybody to have fun. I love working events. I love when we do an event and it's perfect. The bands are happy. All the people that came are happy. Whether I'm playing that show or not, I want that thing to be a success, right?
It's a nice, smooth, everybody.
But then some fuck faces have to come in with their elitist mentality and not knowing their fucking limit of how much they can drink. I don't know, like that's the bane of every show is like the end of the night.
Just not understanding it's self-awareness, right? They don't have the self-awareness, and whether that be the alcohol or just the snooty attitude or whatever, but that's everywhere, man. That's why like, even like bringing it back to like gatekeeping at metal shows and stuff. If some dude shows up and he's wearing like a clearly like goofy band shirt that it's like, oh, like they're not playing tonight, whatever, but like, I don't give a fuck. That dude's not hurting anybody.
Not at all.
If he says what's up to me, I'm gonna be like, hey, what's up, brother? How you doing? Like, whatever. He's not hurting anybody. It's the people that go after those people. It's like, see, you're just causing problems, right? Or people that just drink a little bit too much and just act.
Well, again, it goes back to like clearly they're unhappy people. The only thing they have is being that metal elitist snob. And honestly, the highlight of their week is when they're drunk at the show and making life difficult for somebody else. But again, that's not just metalheads. I've seen that at every type of show. It's like a lot of people are unhappy and they start drinking and
then they project that unhappiness.
In that window of night, everyone starts to do the dumb shit where they're either leaking too much personal information. They're just not keeping as buttoned up as they should. And
can I share?
I don't know.
Can I share a little bit of advice that helped me, like living in like drinking in party cities and shit like that, like college cities and like Nashville and like Seattle, whatever. Like something that helped me that I learned a long time ago: never go back to the same bar twice in one night. Nothing good will happen for multiple reasons. So one, you're like, oh, I need another drink. You don't. You can go to the next location and just keep it flowing.
Or go home.
Like time wants you to do. And like the universe is like, keep it going. Or go home, right? Go back for that other drink. Something bad's going to happen. You're going to reach your limit. Or you just go back there and you'll see people that you don't want to see. And you'll see people that are on that level of like, here's when there's some problems that are going to be started.
This is
right?
the stupid hour.
So yeah, this is dummy time. So again, never go back to the same bar twice in one night unless you're sober and you're picking up a friend. That's it. Or you have business to do. And if not, you got no business being there again.
Well, he came in with the wordplay.
Yeah, that's my therapy moment for the week. You can cash out me.
His cash app is $50 a session. That's our time. It's again, we said it before. We'll say it again. Everyone needs therapy. Everyone needs therapy.
It sounds even better with your voice like this.
I've been your host, Tom Waits. I just don't understand.
Boner and the nudge in the mornings.
Boner and the nudge. What'd you say?
Whatever, some whatever morning talk show host, like Casey and the Bone.
Oh yeah,
Drive Time Radio,
94.4, the one Kiss FM. I don't know. It's always been so annoying to me. It's like, bro, we should be natural allies here. Why are you working against your own self-interest, dipshit? I've just never understood it. But I don't know. They need some therapy. They need some other hobbies, and they need to realize that, I don't know. You and I were fortunate. We were raised in households where we listened to different types of music. We also committed our lives to music, whether it was playing it or knowing everything about it, how it's made. But anyone can do that, right? This was just the hobby that we really got into. And
Totally.
Even though I'm super passionate about it, I never take it that seriously, in the sense that I don't want to be in a box. I've seen enough cool shit to know that if I put myself in a box, I'm going to miss some really cool shit. And I like Jazz Fest. I see some cool shows. Do I need to buy that band's record? Do I need to add them to my Spotify playlists or like become their number one fan? No, but I saw some cool things. I saw a cool thing. I had a cool experience. I heard some shit that is not necessarily what I would be listening to on a day-to-day basis. And it adds to my, the things that I appreciate. I've just never got why.
Well, dude, here's like a perfect example. So like, you're talking about locking yourself in a box and just taking one thing too seriously, right? I mean, it's just like 38 Special says, if you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control. So you better hold on loosely, but don't let go, right? So, wow. But the people that fully commit their lives to something, that's fucking awesome. I want to support people that dive full in. But now me being on the other side of 30 and growing up playing in bands and seeing all these people, all the dudes that like push super hard and didn't have anything else in their lives. And sure, they had like some success and stuff, but like they burn the fuck out. And then because they have nothing else going on and no other hobbies and no whatever, when that little section of what they're doing starts to go awry or go away, that's all that they have. And then shit starts crashing down around them. I've seen it a bunch, like with people I like. And I'm like, man, I wish you would have even gotten into like fucking D&D or something that's like adjacent, right? Because
should have diversified.
Well, something that's fun that introduces you to other. Go play frisbee golf and get into that. Then it's anything, fun. Then you're the metal frisbee golf guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? You show up, people are like, oh, it's the metal guy. Yeah, like you can.
But then you run into those elitist jam band fans, and they're like, you don't listen to string cheese. Get the fuck out.
The elitist frisbee, they're the elitist frolfers. Disc golf.
Yeah, it's a sport now. Okay.
Whatever it may be, right? Like, I just think it's healthy for people to get into other things besides just that one little section of music or art or whatever, because it changes that perspective on the whole thing, and it just makes you a little more well-rounded.
People don't like being removed from their ignorance. Ignorance is comfortable. Ignorance is bliss. Lack of exposure to things is easy because it makes the things that you're comfortable with, the list is short. Life is simpler when you don't have to think that other people maybe do things a little bit differently, right? It's hard. It's hard to remove yourself from that ignorance. It's hard. Sometimes you just need to experience something different. You're gonna benefit from it, whether that's a religious idea or a cultural idea or a musical idea. There's no scenario where you learn more and are worse off because of it.
If you've never had Indian food, go try Indian food now. This week.
Yes. And if you live in Nashville, go to Woodlands. This can be a whole episode. Maybe we actually do this at some point, but I'm not going to lie to you. Nashville had two of the best Indian places I have ever eaten.
Oh,
and
bro, that buffet?
Woodlands is top. Like
that
Woodlands
Sunday buffet?
I don't know. I think it was Thursday, but I don't know if I've eaten, and that's like Southern Indian, all vegetarian. I don't know if I've had a better Indian dish.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
Don't go, too deep into it because there's the Indian food elitists that are really
in Nashville. Yeah, they're really actually kind of violent.
You better take off that LED. Take off that LED cowboy hat before you walk in.
Yeehaw, motherfucker. All right. Well, that's enough of this stupidity. Thank you, nobody, for watching. And I just want to say, Clint, thank you for being here. And I've been your co-host, Tom Waits.
And I'm Clint. Thank you so much for joining the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And we'll see you on the next one.